Today I'm going to teach you how to draft your own skirt. It's super simple, it just takes a few steps. And with this, you'll be able to sew and make skirts that are perfect to your measurements. Now to get started, you just need two measurements. One, it's your height, and the second is the circumference of your hip. This tutorial will be in centimeters, but I do believe it is the easiest way to learn. I'm just going to use some example measurements. First one being is our height, okay? So I'm gonna put the height at 167 centimeters. And then we need our hip. I made a mistake in the original tutorial writing waist, so just mark hip and whatever your hip is. For this example is 50 centimeters. One thing to note in this tutorial, you'll see that the hip measurement is 50 centimeters. It might be thinking, whoa, that's super small. That's actually just your hip measurement divided by 2. As if we're taking a tape measure, measuring our hip comes out as 100 centimeters. So for the pattern, we're using half of that, which would be 50 centimeters. The same goes for your waist. When we're taking the tape measure around our waist, it comes out as 76. We divide it by 2, 38, and that's what we're using to draft the pattern. So with these two measurements, okay, we can now build a pattern for a skirt. But first, we need to do just a little bit of math. Using these measurements, the first thing we're going to figure out is the hip depth, okay? So hip depth. And to get this, it's going to be 1/10 of your height, so 167 centimeters, plus 2. So that gives us about 16.7 plus 2, which equals 18.7. So do this math for your own measurements. This is our hip depth, 18.7 centimeters, okay? Next, we need to know how long we want the skirt to be. You can make the skirt as long as you want, but you can do math to get it just below the knees. And what that would be is, so length of skirt is 4/10 times height, which is again 167. So I'm gonna do a little math here, which is 66.8, okay. So I'm just gonna round it up and say 67. So that's gonna be our length for the skirt. And then we need to figure out what is the measurement of our waist. Again, you can measure your waist on your own, and just use that. But if we don't have that waist measurement, it's going to be hip minus 12. So we're going to take, this should be hip. So waist is then 50 minus 12, which equals 38. Great, so that is our waist measurement. Awesome. And then lastly, it's just gonna be the proportion of the pattern. And so that is going to be, proportion. That is going to be the measurement of the hip. So again, 50 plus ease, which is going to be 2. And that is going to be 52 centimeters is our proportion, which we'll then use this for later in the equation. For darts, we're gonna have to add darts as well. You can typically, a dart is about 3 centimeters, but you can modify that to how you want. But typically how we get the measurement of a dart is hip minus waist over 4. D minus 38 over 4, which gets us 3 centimeters. Great. So once we have all of these measurements, we can now make our pattern. To make your pattern, you're going to need a few things. One, typically a mechanical pencil is best with an eraser. If you do have a triangle ruler like this, that is ideal, but you can also just use a normal ruler. Okay, in this case, you can just make this at full scale, but I will be using a scaled ruler, so that way you can see all these steps on this small piece of paper. Again, I highly recommend getting one of these. It's a great way to learn pattern drafting and to practice making your own patterns. Step number 1, I'm gonna make it over here, okay? Step number 1, just make a right angle, all right? That is step number 1. We're gonna call this point 0, okay? You don't need to do the points like the 0, but just follow along, all right? So step number 1, make a right angle. Great. Next step, we need to mark the hip depth, okay? So we're gonna, and ours here is 18.7, wonderful. So I'm gonna use my scaled ruler here. So this is 16, 17, 18, so I'm gonna mark to about there. 18.7, let's see, it's like right around there. Great. Okay, so this is going to be hip depth. Awesome. Next is going to be the length of the skirt, which here is 67 centimeters. So let's go all the way down here. We're going to go to 67. Boom. 67 right there. I'm going to mark all over here. And we need to extend our line a little bit. Cool. Awesome. So this is length of skirt. Cool. I'm gonna call this 2. So the next step is to square these off, 1 and 2. But before we do that, we want to know how wide we want to make this pattern, and that is going to be half of the proportion. And our proportion, remember, is 52. So that is going to be 26. I hope this is wide enough. We will see. Yep, we're okay. So I'm gonna mark 26 centimeters. Great. Now this is the fun part, and the easy part is we're just gonna square these off. Again, I'm just kind of lining up. This is why the triangle ruler is very helpful. You can line it up there and just go straight across like that. Cool. And then I'm going to square this off as well. So now we have the dimensions of the skirt, and it's going to get pretty easy from here. This skirt is going to have 2 darts, okay? Each are going to be 3 centimeters. The first one is going to be from here to here, all right? And that is going to be 3 centimeters. Great. Remember that we got our dart measurement from using this equation, 3 centimeters. And we'll call this number 4, okay? Cool. So one thing to note as well is that this is going to have a fold. So the skirt is going to open up like this, and that would be the front of the skirt, and then you have the back of the skirt. Once we have the dart marked, so the 3 centimeters, we're going to go up half the distance of the dart. So half of 3 centimeters is 1.5. I'm going to mark that like right around here. If you do have a French ruler, I think is what they're called, but basically just like these rulers that have the small curve, that would be great to use, but you don't need one. You can also just draw your own curve. It doesn't need to be perfect. And there, we're going to connect it from this point to here, all right, with a little curve. Because when you sew these 2 sides together, you're going to have the space here and the space here, and that's going to create a dart. Now to place our second dart, we're just going to measure what is the midway point between 0 and 4, which looks to be about 22. So I'm going to mark it at 11. Remember, our darts are 3 centimeters, so I'm going to mark 1.5 centimeters here, 1.5 centimeters here, and typically a dart is about 10 to 12 centimeters. So we'll do that at a right angle as well. Okay. Let's see when we get to 10 centimeters. Great. Once you have this dart placed, the last thing you're going to do is connect this point to here. Again, you can use your French ruler to make the curve nice and easy, but you can also just freehand if you don't have that. Awesome. Once you've connected 0 to the top point there and create a little curve, you're then going to cut out the skirt. Again, don't forget to add the grain line to mark the fold, and then you're going to cut this choice. Because once we cut this on the fabric, going to open it up, you have the front and the back piece of your skirt, and you're going to sew along here. So that's the step-by-step on how to make a skirt. I hope it was helpful. Make sure to follow, like, share with a friend. And if you have any questions, be sure to comment below.